Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our midweek Wednesday study, and we are in the book of Judges, chapter 11. Last week, we left off with, again, uh, kind of laying the groundwork for a very challenging portion of Scripture as we finished the rest of chapter 11. So just to kind of recap a little bit, looking at your screen, you'll see a map of um, the land of Israel, showing the different judges that are there and their time frames. And so, circling here with the cursor is Jephthah, which is taken from Judges 11 through 12. So, last week we went up to verse 31, and Jephthah is being chosen to be a leader in Israel. They call him a judge, but again, he doesn't have a major part like we see others, like previously with Gideon. But it looks like the Israelites are in a dire straits, and so they're looking for anyone to be a leader. And Jephthah seems to have a relationship with God that has allowed him to be positioned in this place to be used. And as we pick up, Jephthah made a vow before the Lord in verse 30, as you see on the screen. And again, the whole purpose of vows are very challenging to understand. Um, we see in the Bible that there's more of an understanding against us as Christians taking a vow, because a vow creates a understanding of us fulfilling something and doing it in such a positive, meaning forceful way that as the Bible alludes to, we're putting ourselves in a position to fulfill something that we physically cannot guarantee. Um, in reality, only God can make a promise and never break that promise. We as humans can make promises, which is somewhat what a vow is, but a vow is a stronger form of a promise that normally has some sort of very strong sacrifice, or um, if you fail to do it, you are put in great hardship and emotional stress or monetary stress. It just takes a promise to a new level of trying to back up that promise with, as the Bible will help us see, something that we really shouldn't be doing, because we cannot back up promises in ways that cause harm to ourselves or to others. And so there's a whole lot of different feelings on, whether Christians should take a vow. Many times when some groups of Christians go into a jury situation and they're asked to swear that they tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, they will come back to the biblical teaching of not taking a vow, and they will put their hand on the Bible and say, "I confirm," thereby, saying, basically, to the best of my ability, I confirm I will not tell a lie. But rather than enter into a vow, uh, they choose against it. And it all goes back to this chapter, and then also many New Testament teachings. So here Jephthah vowed a vow, and said, if God will not fail to deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then whatever comes forth from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from this battle, it will surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Again, uh, if you look at the wording of this verse 31, what was this guy thinking? I mean, what is going to come out of the doors of your house to meet you? Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Do you have any other kind of pet that when you come home, uh, wouldn't your wife come out the door? Um, what about your children coming out the door? Maybe maybe it was his mother-in-law coming out the door. I don't know, but this is just so strange. He knew what goes in and out of his house. And so it's like very, very strange that anybody would make such a vow, especially what throws the clinker in here is this is a burnt offering. Well, burnt offerings, there are strict guidelines as given in the book of Leviticus as to what can constitute a burnt offering. What if an animal came out that was not a clean animal, was not one that was capable of being, what if a mouse ran out the door when he came in or a rat ran out the door? You could not give that as a burnt offering to God. That would not be acceptable. The other thing that's not acceptable is human sacrifice, because as you see where the rest of this chapter is going, that is the mindset that is taught, that is spoken about, and basically translated into English in that way. And that's where having the ability to look at some of the Hebrew, look at some of the Jewish history and teaching on it will help take us away from that type of mindset, because burnt offerings of humans was a pagan idea. Was Jephthah totally, you know, sold out to God and trying to follow God, or was he still delving and mixing paganism with the worship of the one true God, which has been very common through all of this study of the Israelites, is that they've vacillated quite a bit. There were times when they're worshiping the one true God, then they slipped back into idolatry, even child sacrifice to the Shemosh, which was a god of child sacrifice. So is Jephthah kind of mixing something here? You will find that some commentators of the Bible will say that yes, he is mixing some of this. But again, it's very disturbing as you begin to think of it. And I have always, through this time, been taught that it appeared that Jephthah would have offered a burnt offering for whatever came through his door. So hang on to that thought. As we move on, Jephthah went and fought the battle. The Lord delivered them into his hands. Give some criteria or some instance of what happened in verse 33. And then here we get to the heart of the matter, verse 34. So Jephthah comes back to his house, and who comes out the door to meet him? His daughter with timbrels, and she's dancing. And she was his only child, and beside her he had no sons or daughter. Well, he would know that she was going to be there, that she was going to be missing her dad, and be happy that he comes back with a victory. So why would he not expect that she was going to come out the door? Well, verse 35, obviously he wasn't expecting this, because verse 35, it says, when he saw her, he dropped to the ground, tore his clothes, which is an expression in the Bible for extreme grief and sorrow, and said, "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low." Okay, it wasn't her fault, it was his fault. "And you are like one that trouble me, for I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back." Here's where this just gets really strange. So here he's lamenting over what's about to happen here. So what's going through his mind? What does he think is going to happen? It's obviously something that's very troubling to him. He rent his clothes. This was a big deal back in those days where people didn't have a whole wardrobe full of clothes. Clothes were expensive. People maybe only had one or two changes of clothes, and to tear your clothes would be showing extreme grief, because you had to bear the result of that. You had clothes that were ripped for the rest of your time that you wore them clothes. And so, verse 36, looking at the character of his daughter, and she says to him, "My father, if you have opened your mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which you have proceeded out of your mouth, for as much as the Lord hath taken vengeance upon thine enemies, even of the children of Ammon." So, what was she thinking? Obviously, she knew the story of Abraham and Isaac. Um, is she saying, well, do with me like Abraham was going to do to Isaac, which again is a story that um, counters the idea of child sacrifice or of human sacrifice. We know that God intervened and stopped Abraham from sacrificing Isaac. Did she think maybe this was going to happen to her? What was going through her mind? We get a little bit of a clue in verse 37. Now, if she was thinking that she was going to die, she would be concerned about her life and about her relationship with her father, but yet she isn't. She says, "Let this thing be done to me. Let me go alone for 2 months that I may go up and down upon the mountains and bewail my virginity with all my girlfriends." So, it, again, what it appears here is she is not concerned about her life and that she was going to die. She was concerned that she wasn't going to get married and have children, and that she was going to remain single, a virgin all of her life. That seems to be what is being clearly brought out here. And so when we do that, we think of what other instance was someone um, could be in this realm. And we think of Samuel with his mother bringing him to the temple, dedicating him to the temple for a life of service. And so while it may, on one hand, seem that he might be having to offer her as a burnt offering, here we get a glimpse that there is another alternative, that this bewailing my virginity was her main concern. And so I believe this is the clue that lets us understand that she wasn't going to be offered as a sacrifice, but that she was going to be dedicated to the service of the temple, which obviously meant she would not be able to marry, not be able to have children, and that's why she is bewailing her virginity. And so look at verse 38. Rather than say, well, stay here and spend the time with me because I'm never going to see you again. I want to interact with you. I want to leave memories. I want to have you with me all of this time because you're going to die. He says, go ahead, spend the time in the mountains with your friends. And they bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. I don't know what this means. I don't know why it would take 2 months for them uh, to go through whatever this ritual was, whatever this situation was, of why she was being sorrowful over this, but it took 2 months. And so at verse 39, watch the wording here. It came to pass at the end of 2 months she returned to her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed. And it doesn't say she died. It doesn't say he never saw her again. It The importance here is not on her death occurring, not upon a sacrifice going up. It was upon that she knew no man. And then, of course, here afterwards, it became obviously everybody knew this. So it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel would go yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah for 4 days. The other thing, too, is that the fact that everybody knew what was going on. If he was going to offer her as a human sacrifice, there would have been public intervention. They would have stopped him from doing such an atrocity. The priests would have been there. He wouldn't have been able to take her into the tabernacle, into the place where the burnt offerings were given. It would have been stopped as a total atrocity here. And so I, in no way, after reading this, believe that she was offered as a burnt offering. So let's look in the Hebrew here a little bit and see if this gives us any indication. Um, where the words burnt offering are spoken about, and here we're looking at the um, Bible Hub in the Hebrew Interlinear, it is this portion here that I'm circling, and it talks about the word um, vehati hatalihu and then olah. You'll see that the number here of the word 5927 and 5930 are very close to one another, and that is the beauty of Hebrew, in that words that are similar together in the way this dictionary of Hebrew is, have very similar meanings. So when we look up the meaning of that word by hyperlinking on it, it goes back to a root word that is Allah. And the word Allah simply means to go up and to ascend. And so the understanding there is that things that went up and ascended were considered offering. And so you have the word of going up and going up again. And so here the word olah is the same root word, even though here the translators would say that it's implying a burnt offering, what it really meant of something that goes up. And one thing that's always common is that wherever God's temple is, you always go up to it. It's talked about now as in Jerusalem. You never go down to Jerusalem, you always go up to Jerusalem. Even though there are places that are higher in physical elevation to Jerusalem, a Jewish person, Hebrew person, will never go down to Jerusalem. You always go up to Jerusalem. You go up to where God's presence is. You go up to where the worship is made, and things are always ascending. So here you don't have a clear picture that he was really thinking a burnt offering. He's using the word olah, which is given up, being given up into God. He will offer it, he will give it up, he will lift it up to God as an in this way that he's dedicating and giving her to him. And so there are keys of understanding here um, in these verses that help us to just unpack this in a better way that fits with the rest of the scriptures. Not that there isn't, not that we're not going to come across some things where horrible things were done, and people's lives were um, I guess, violated in ways. We will come across those, but I believe here in the case of Jephthah, that his daughter was not offered as a burnt sacrifice, but that she was given to the dedication in dedication to service at the tabernacle. And again, just want to unpack this word for bewailed here and just see if that it is to weep, it is to bewail. Again, it's obviously something that he was sorrowful over and something she was sorrowful over, being the only child and not being able to have any children, not being able to marry, and not giving anything as far as to the family lineage. So I hope you are get a little bit of better understanding over what has been a very challenging end to the book of Judges, chapter 11. And but hang on to your seats. We're going to even find some more challenging things coming up as we go on. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hope you enjoy the study and look forward to sharing with you again next week. Bye bye.